No way Cam signs with anyone as a backup. Continue to rehab. Wait for travel restrictions to lift so teams can examine him. Worst case, he waits until a starter gets hurt. Stephen A., should Cam consider a backup quarterback role at this point?
Hell no. Absolutely, positively not. He's Cam Newton, for crying out loud. And number two, and more importantly, his success has never been predicated on his ability to throw the football completely accurately, or not completely accurately, but significantly accurately. As Max has pointed out on numerous occasions, under Norv Turner's stewardship as the offensive coordinator in Carolina, he completed 67% of his passes. Prior to that, Cam Newton only completed better than 60% of his passes one time in his career. One year he was exactly at 60%. Another year he was at 61%. The other 7 years or so, 6 to 7 years, he was below that. And so the reality is that he was still successful because of his ability to run with the football, move the chains, chew up the clock, et cetera, et cetera. His athleticism was definitely applauded on numerous occasions. We all know that he led them to a 15-1 record. I believe it was in 2015, and got them to Super Bowl, even though they lost to the Denver Broncos. We get all of that. And so if you're Cam Newton and all of those things are attached to your resume, and it had a lot to do with your level of success, then it's really about not just you throwing the football. It's about how healthy you are, how athletic you still are, how hungry you still are, etc. I think he'd be better off sitting out the year if necessary and then coming back after next season, or waiting until somebody gets hurt and then landing someplace else. I think the Chargers should call him now. I think he'd be better off doing that than accepting a backup role anywhere. Cam Newton is not a backup at this point in his career. There's no reason for him to accept such a demotion.
Well, I disagree. Cam Newton, I believe, still has an MVP caliber season left in him, at least one. I think he can be an elite quarterback again. Is there precedent for a top guy, the best player in football, Cam Newton was, the best player in football at one point, to become a backup? Well, something like it, Stephen A. I look back at Kurt Warner. Now, he wasn't drafted first overall like Cam. The expectations are different and all that stuff, but he was at one point the best player in football. He was the MVP, and he was a superstar. And because of injuries, it wasn't always obvious at the time, but it was obviously eventually recognized that because of injuries to his hand and then an MCL, all these things, he had to demonstrate that he could stay healthy, and Mark Bulger took his job with the Rams. And then what did he do? He signed with the Giants. Now, he started, but the Giants had just traded up. I mean, they traded Phillip Rivers and the pick that would become Nate Kading, who was a Pro Bowler, and Sean Merriman, who was a beast, in order to get Eli Manning. So clearly, Warner was going to a team where even if he started, it wouldn't be for long, and that's what happened. What Warner had to do was just go somewhere and establish that he could still be the same player, that he was still healthy. The issue with Cam is injury. You want him to go to the right situation. Even if he's backing up, Stephen A., people will know if he in practice, etc. Is he healthy? What are the reports on him? Does he look good? Does he look like the old Cam? A backup job with a team like the Ravens, where they have RG3 and he's kind of like a poor man's version at this point of Lamar Jackson and all that. I get that, but Cam would be an even better approximation in terms of his impact on the field at this point. If he went to a place like that, where you have a chance to play if there was an injury, but otherwise could spend a year, like you say, sitting out, essentially doing the same thing, but really establishing himself again around the league, his reputation and all that, I think that would be good for him. So backing up for certain teams would make sense for me.
I think sitting out does all of that, Max. I think sitting out does all of that. I think him standing on the sideline as a backup, I think hurts him more than helps him, because it lets everybody see him in a backup role instead of seeing him as who the hell he is. And that's Cam Newton, the former NFC champion, and a former league MVP, and one of the elite players in the game that's suddenly a backup. I think what you're suggesting actually works in reverse. It hurts him more than
Kurt
sitting
Warner
out.
Going to a Super Bowl after all that.
He ain't Kurt Warner. Different animal.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.